Okay, so let's get started. All right, well, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for tuning in to this webinar for busy lawyers. These are monthly webinars and they're designed to bring you practical information in 20 to 30 minutes that you can implement immediately in your practice. And today I've got the pleasure of introducing Marsha Watson-Wasserman and Andrew Elowit. Marsha is the founder and president of Comprehensive Management Solutions, and she provides the COO to Go service to boutique and mid-sized law firms. Her expertise includes operational management reviews, management and leadership development and training, succession planning, strategic planning, retreat facilitation, cash flow projections, and financial management reports. Recruitment, compensation benefits, administration, development of employee handbooks and job description, business formation, and relocations. Wow, that's a mouthful. She's also the co-author of Lawyers as Managers, How to Be a Champion for Your Law Firm and Employees. And that was published, it's just been published, right, by the ABA?
That's right, just a month ago.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll make sure to give some information about that at the end. So Andrew specializes in leadership and talent development for lawyers and legal executives. His firm New Actions focuses on the people side of legal practice, how lawyers lead, manage, thrive, change, and find resilience and balance. He works with lawyers and managers in private practice, corporate legal departments, and government agencies. He's the author of many books and articles, including Lawyers as Managers, How to Be a Champion for Your Law Firm and Employees, co-authored with Marsha, and The Lawyer's Guide to Professional Coaching, Leadership, Mentoring, and Effectiveness. So before I turn it over to Marsha and Andrew, I want to let everyone know that we will have time at the end to take questions from attendees. So if you do have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat box, and I will relay those to Marsha and Andrew at the very end. So Marsha and Andrew, please take it away.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you very much. We're going to take the audience through a very quick tour of one chapter of our book, the chapter on delegation. We see delegation as one of the main responsibilities of a champion manager. Now, to become a champion delegator, the first thing you have to do is adopt a champion manager mindset. Now, you may not realize it, but you do already have a mindset. These are the collections of beliefs and assumptions and habits that you've developed. And they've been conditioned in part by your legal training and by your practice of law. So it's different. There are overlaps, but it is different from a champion manager mindset. This is what we think are the core parts of a champion manager mindset. And let me say here, I apologize for the number of bullet points that we have. Typically, we don't. Because we're doing such a fast tour, we wanted the slides that you will get as part of this to be a resource for you. Now, the first thing is you got to believe that people management is necessary, high priority, and you do it every day. As a champion manager, you need self-awareness and self-management skills. It's helpful to be curious, be open to new ideas, and have a growth mentality. And by growth mentality, I mean something different than a fixed mentality. Believe that you can learn, you can change. Some people think, you know, where I am now is all I've got. I have my intelligence, that's it, I'm not going to get better. That's going to be an obstacle. So have a growth mentality. You need great communication, management, and leadership skills. And more than that, you need to be dedicated to the growth and development of your firm members. And you need to be willing to get to know them on an individual basis. Champion managing is not about one size fits all. It's being versatile, it's being adaptive. Now, all this is great. And as I said before, you have a lawyer mindset, but sometimes your lawyer brain may get in the way.
So you need to try to not get in your own way, whether it's the lawyer brain or something else that is interfering in your willingness to delegate. People can be perceived as difficult. If you're delegating to someone, you may say, hey, it's difficult to do it, or the person who I have to delegate to that associate, that secretary. I really don't trust them. So I have to micromanage them. And then the end result of that is that they're not going to be happy, and probably you're not going to be happy. And at the other extreme are delegators who do the dump and run, where you just give them an assignment, don't explain it in context, don't give them enough details, don't meet with them and do follow-up. And at the end, when they turn it in, you wonder why it was poorly done and not to the standard you would want. Another way in which we get in our own way is stress of having too much work to deal with. So you don't want to delegate because you're a perfectionist and no one can do it as well as you can. And if you wonder whether you have an issue with delegating and holding on too much, ask yourself this simple question. If you had to take an unexpected week off work, would your initiatives and your priorities advance in your absence? If you said no, or if you're unsure about it, then you're likely more involved than you should be. And to raise the ceiling of your leadership potential, you need to extend your presence through delegating. There is a lawyer who was also a psychologist named Larry Richard, who spent years studying lawyers' personality traits, using assessment tools to do so. And what he has learned over the years is lawyers rate very high on skepticism. They're cynical, argumentative, questioning. Good traits for being a lawyer, not necessarily a good trait for a manager. They have a high sense of urgency. They're impatient. They need to get things done. And that often causes conflicts if you're sharing staff, sharing an associate with other people. Everybody creates a crisis because what you want is urgent and the person in the middle doesn't know how to respond to all of the concerns and get everything done. And it puts, particularly with the support staff, it puts them in the middle, and it's difficult. Lawyers are higher in autonomy. They resist being managed. That's where you hear about herding cats. And lawyers do prize their independence, don't like to be told what to do. Where lawyers are lower than the norm in society, sociability, that doesn't mean they're antisocial, but lawyers only like to work with people that they already trust. And then lawyers are very, very low when it comes to resiliency. They're defensive, they're hypersensitive to criticism. And one of the good things is that this is a learnable trait. If you work on it, you can overcome being hypersensitive and being as defensive as you are. If you have the right tools and you are responsive. But those traits are important to think about in how you interact with other people. And because of the lawyer brain, you may not communicate. You may have unclear instructions. You may procrastinate. You may hand off work and decide you're too busy for follow-up or check-in meetings. You may micromanage people and drive them absolutely crazy, or you may reverse delegate and take it back because you think you can do it better, or it's not coming along the way you want it to.
Okay, so we could stop here. Now you know why it's difficult to delegate, but that wouldn't be fair. So what do champion managers do? Well, the simple way they take of approaching delegation is they ask 4 key questions. And you should ask yourself this. Practice it initially. It's going to become second nature to you after a while. You will also have the benefit of training the people you delegate to. The 4 questions you see here. What work can and should be delegated? To whom should it be delegated? How should I delegate it? And once I've delegated it, you can't just put it out into the ether and let it go. You have to continue to manage it after the initial delegation. So let's deal with those step by step. First of all, what work can and should be delegated. This table is very, very useful in deciding what you should. Now, we break this down in terms of importance of a task and its complexity. They are not the same. Let's say you have something that is relatively simple, it's not complex, and it's not really important. Ask yourself, why should I do it? If it's simple and routine, give it to somebody else, either eliminate it or automate it. It's probably not the best use of your time. Now, let's go across our table on the diagonal. What if it's high complexity and high importance? Well, the chances are you're going to need to do it yourself. You may have a client who says, I only want you to handle this, or this is a very sensitive and confidential matter, so only for your eyes, or I don't trust anybody else in your firm. I have my personal relationship with you. So it may be that you need to do it yourself. But even in that case, if it's complex, the chances are that there are a lot of different components and facets to it, and you may be able to break it down into those components and delegate some of them. Now, the two other remaining squares, high complexity and low importance, and the converse, are opportunities for development and mentoring. So let's look at something that's complex, but not that important. You can break it down into simple components and delegate it to others. You're still going to be responsible for it, but you're going to be training your people. And let's say the complexity is low, but it's very important. Well, you can delegate and closely supervise. Okay, so now that you know what you should delegate and what not, and how, and a sense of how you can break things down, you have the question of who should I give the work to? This starts at the very beginning. Hire qualified people. Give them training and resources. If you don't have people in your firm that you don't trust, if you are in a position to hire them and train them, then it's on you. But you may want to talk to your human resources people or your partners and say they need more training. You need to become familiar with the skill level, the experience of each person in the office, and look at delegation as an integral part of their development, an investment in your firm's future. It's an investment in the future because what we've found is that effective delegation raises morale, raises retention. If people feel they're not growing as attorneys or as paralegals or as legal secretaries, they are less likely to be engaged. They're just going to phone it in. I don't mean that literally. Virtual employees, I mean that even when they're in the office, they're not going to be all there. They're not going to be as productive. So use development as a means to boost morale. Now, that doesn't mean that you give people horribly difficult things. You want to stretch people's capabilities. You can stretch them too far. That's true. But it's good to stretch people. They will feel growth. They will feel that they are growing. Now, this can be their substantive knowledge, their procedural knowledge, or even their management and leadership skills. It is going to take you more time to offer the guidance and resources, but it's an investment. It's not time spent, it's time invested. Now, a few tips on how you should do things. Delegate as early as possible. Don't delay. Make your instructions clear, concise, complete. 3 C's there. Be specific as to when stuff is needed. When I was practicing law, I hated it when I would, managing partner would say, I need this by the end of the week. I like and I do better when I have a set time. It's very finite and I can aim for that. And if it is a big project, you can break it into not necessarily components, but phases. So you can say, I want to draft by the end of Tuesday. I want to go through that with you on Thursday, and I want Friday by noon to have your final work on it. That way you have check-ins, you have milestones, and you can make sure that the work is getting done on time and properly. Be clear about what you're asking for. Is it an email, a memo, rough draft, just a conversation with you? You'd be surprised how many times people are not clear about that. If it's billable time, let the people you're delegating to know about how long it should take. Some people feel this is, we don't, we use alternative fees, or it's fixed fees. It's still important to give people a sense of how long a task should take. If it's taking too long, then that fixed fee may not be profitable for you. You want them to have a target. It's also probably going to be an incentive towards them performing better, more effectively. Also, especially with millennials, let them know how what they're doing fits in with an entire transaction, a case, the client's larger concerns. Millennials really need context. I think all of us do. They just want it more than we do, or maybe they're more vocal about it. Thank goodness they are. And last, give people the resources to succeed. Give them the information, the references. If they're templates, similar work, hand it to them. Tell them not to copy it, verbatim, because they'll just go on to autopilot. Let them do that. Okay, you want to let them know which are their decisions, which not, and let them understand who they can contact for further information. It's somebody inside the firm, outside the firm. Can they talk to the client? Should they talk to the client's chief financial officer? Let them understand what the boundaries are. You can make sure that they understand you by having them paraphrase and summarize what you've said. It may seem like you're checking on them. It doesn't have to. It's a matter of tone. But ask them, okay, with everything I've told you, just give me the short caption. Okay, what are you going to be doing and when are you going to be doing it? You're going to find that there are errors in communication. It may be yours, it may be their understanding. It doesn't matter. Just clear them up ahead of time. And then ask them how they're going to handle this. They're going to give you a sense of what they're going to do, and you can give them further guidance. Okay, now, as I said, we just got something, and I'm not sure why. And I hope that's not on people's screens. Let me see if I can get that off. Huh.
No, you're okay.
It's not showing up good.
Okay, good.
Well, then Marcia's going to tell us, okay, after we've done the initial delegation, how should we manage it?
This is an area where people do fall short. They get busy, lawyers are busy, they hand off the work, and then they don't have milestones, they don't follow up. So first and foremost, you should have a system for tracking and reviewing the tasks and projects that have been delegated. Whether you're keeping it as to-dos in Outlook or some similar system, or you have more sophisticated software, or you're writing it on a pad if you're in a small law firm, do something and set check-in dates to monitor progress. If you don't do that, people may go sideways on what you delegated and the end product isn't going to be what you'd hoped for. Give them timely feedback throughout the course of the project. Tell them what looks good about what they've done, where they need to change or go in a different direction. And then at the very end, if all they've done, you've delegated a piece of a bigger project to someone, then share the final work product. And this is, again, important, particularly for millennials, so they can see how their efforts contributed to the overall results. Show some appreciation, thank them, give them feedback, tell them what they did well, what they can do even better. The Harvard Business Review published a study a year ago that said, they researched thousands of law firms for this study, that those people who those lawyers who delegate well earn minimally 20% more than they would if they didn't delegate well. And those partners who are really successful at delegating can earn up to 50% more. So in the pocketbook, and also the clients appreciate when you delegate that the work is being given to the lowest billing rate, but the most qualified person for doing that particular task. Engagement and motivation are important. You don't want people just phoning it in or sitting there or sitting on the internet looking for their next job. You have to be careful to have the right balance. If you get too involved, you may be micromanaging people and impeding their development and probably driving them crazy. I can say back many years ago, I started out when I was in college as a legal secretary and paralegal, and when lawyers stood over me and micromanaged me, it drove me absolutely bonkers. On the other hand, if you're too hands-off, you miss opportunities where feedback or a show of support would be helpful. So getting the right balance depends on the assignment, depends on who you're delegating to. And we would suggest that you talk to whoever you're delegating work to when you first start working with them to learn what balance they prefer. Some people like to have more frequent check-ins if they've had helicopter parents, and others want the liberty to do as much of it on their own without your intervention. So it all depends, and it should be done at a very individual basis.
So in the past 20 minutes, we have maybe flooded you with information and ideas about how you should delegate. We'll pause here. Listen, these may be new skills for you. You're going to need to practice them to get them right, to become effective. At first, they may seem a little awkward, a little mechanical. That's okay. That's normal. As you practice them, you're going to get better and better at delegation. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you stick with it, you will be on your path to being a champion manager. And we, when we're writing our book, really went back and forth a lot and did the big think and the deep think about how we wanted to talk about managers. We talked about effective management. That wasn't quite it, but we thought champion was a really great term. It worked on 3 levels for us. Okay, champion managers demonstrate the highest level of people management skills. The key to getting things done in law firms is people management. It's not moving widgets around. It's not working with spreadsheets. It's dealing with people. You're dealing with knowledge workers. You are a knowledge worker if you're a lawyer. So demonstrate the highest levels of people management skills. Managers need to be dedicated to supporting and championing the members of their firms. And when they do, and they have these high skills, they create a team of champions. And the benefits of that will cascade down through the firm. You may have an associate, and if you are delegating clearly and well to them, he or she may then imitate your style with the admins, the legal secretaries, the paralegals he or she is working with. So this can spread. It can be kind of viral when you start using championship delegation. Okay, if you would like to contact us, here is information for you. That'll be in your packet. And if you're interested in our book, you can see the URL and you can click on that. That will take you to the ABA bookstore. If you are a member of the ABA, the price is less than if you buy the book on Amazon. And I think just last week we appeared on Amazon. Even if you aren't a member, I think the ABA price is still lower than Amazon. So now we'll pause and we'll show you the back and front covers, and we'll take any questions you may have.
Great. Well, thank you, Marcia and Andrew. I appreciate it. Those were some great specific tips and takeaways for how to effectively delegate, and I think people can start to implement those today. If anyone has a question, please feel free to type it into the chat box, and I will ask it to Marcia and Andrew. I don't see any yet, but your contact information has been provided. Just so you know, we will have a copy of the slides up and a recording of this up on our website after today. And if you would like either of their contact information, if you missed it, feel free to contact me about it. Marcia and Andrew, can you give, I see you have a back cover here. Can you give a brief synopsis of the book or what people can expect to find in the book? I know we focused on one chapter in particular.
Sure. That's going to take another 20 minutes, Heidi.
I was afraid to ask.
Well, we really start by looking at what the fundamentals are. The champion manager mindset we go into in much greater detail, and that's a matter of actually letting go of some of the ideas, some of the assumptions, some of the beliefs we have about what it means to practice law, to manage, to be effective. One of the things that I like to talk about is you got to get rid of the golden rule. Now, the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And lawyers and other managers and leaders often believe that means I'm going to manage people the way I want to be managed. Well, that doesn't work because everybody isn't the same as you. I recently read, somebody wrote, there's a better rule, the platinum rule, which is don't manage people the way you would want to be managed. Manage them the way they want to be managed. You're going to find that you need to be versatile as a champion manager. So that's the introductory part of the book. The second part goes into the skill sets, communication skills we start with. We talk about onboarding. We talk about how you delegate. Another important chapter is how you give feedback. That is also essential to building morale. We talk about what it means to have a great culture. And did I miss anything, Marcia, in that section off the top of my head?
No.
Okay, and then we go over to specific situations, and we find that people have really enjoyed that, where we talk about things as diverse as working with superstars, working with B players, working with underperformers, working towards diversity and inclusion, working with virtual employees, the differences between managing lawyers versus managing staff, how to prevent harassment and bullying, a topic, sadly, which is very topical in the past few weeks. And then at the end, we talk about what you as a manager need to do to take care of yourself and to continue to grow your management skills.
And we include checklists and forms that you can implement in your own practice.
Yeah, we really wanted this to be something very practical, down to earth. It's usable by people who have management experience already. Maybe we should end by talking about the beginning of this book, which was a conversation, a telephone conversation between Marcia and myself, where she had a client, a newly minted partner, who was, well, Marcia, you tell the story.
She was a trial lawyer and had just been promoted to junior partner and was basically beating up the associates in snarky emails and yelling at people. And she was self-aware enough to realize she shouldn't be doing that and wanted help. And I asked Andrew if he knew of any books that were very specific about lawyers and managing law firms. And he didn't, but he said, why don't we write it? And that's how we started the journey.
Oh, that's so interesting. So I don't see any other questions here. I do have one question. Do you ever suggest to attorneys to take inventories of their own skill set or management sets? Is that helpful, like a Kolb learning style or Myers-Briggs? Is that something you talk about in the book or think about with the attorneys that you work with?
Yeah.
We mention assessments, but very briefly. But within the book, there are questions that are self-assessments, not a Myers-Briggs type assessment, but things that are specific to the different chapters. Are you a micromanager? There's a list just that you go through to see, am I micromanaging, and others like that, to try to give people insight into themselves.
And one of the suggestions we make, especially with regard to the micromanaging, is, okay, you go ahead, do the self-assessment. As we know, there are possible flaws when we self-report. We all have blind spots. That's just part of being human. So we suggest that, okay, you may not think you're a micromanager. Have the people that report to you do the same assessment, anonymously, mind you, and find out what they say about your delegation style, your managing style. It may be very surprising. Myers-Briggs is not one that I find really works that well within law firms. Marcia likes to use the DISC assessment, and we've used that in some of the firms we've worked together on. I like the HBDI, which stands for Herman Brain Dominance Instrument, which is, now you can understand why they call it the HBDI. I like it because it talks about thinking styles. It's not a personality assessment, but just people can approach things. Some people are very analytical, some people are very visionary, others very literal and procedural, and others are very people-oriented. And seeing the differences, one, it can help you develop self-awareness, but it can also disabuse you of the notion that everybody sees the world the way you do.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in and talking with us today, and hopefully this was useful to everyone. And I want to thank both our speakers, Marcia and Andrew. We will provide, as I said, a recording of the slides on our website at masslowmap.org. And thank you for everyone for tuning in. And you can mark your calendars for next month's webinar, which is on November 15th. And we'll be talking about distraction management. So thank you again, and thank you again to Marcia and Andrew.
Have a good weekend, Massachusetts.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, to them. Email it.